I never thought the day would come when my own son would look me in the eye and ask for $200,000. As if it were pocket change, as if decades of hard work and sacrifice meant nothing. But what shocked me even more was what happened after I said no. 2 days later, his wife handed me a glass of her special lemonade at a family barbecue, and what I discovered next exposed secrets I never could have imagined. If you've ever felt betrayed by your own family, or if you know the pain of being used for your money, please subscribe, like, and share your story in the comments. Your support means more than you know, and you might help someone else who's living through the same heartbreak. I'm a 60-year-old man, and I've always prided myself on being a provider. I built my business from the ground up, starting with nothing but a toolbox and a stubborn streak. My wife, Linda, stood by me through every late night and every setback. We raised 2 kids, my son Mark and my daughter Emily, in a modest home in Ohio. I taught them the value of hard work, honesty, and family. Or at least I thought I did. Mark was always ambitious, but somewhere along the way, ambition turned into entitlement. He married young to a woman named Jessica, charming on the outside, but with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. From the start, she seemed to have a knack for getting what she wanted. I tried to welcome her, tried to believe the best, but there was always something about her that made me uneasy. The trouble started when Mark called me out of the blue, his voice all business. "Dad, I need a favor. Jessica and I want to invest in a new property, but we're short on cash. Can you wire us $200,000? We'll pay you back, I promise." I nearly dropped the phone. "Mark, that's not a small favor. That's my retirement. That's your mother's security." He got defensive, then angry. "You always said yes, you'd help us if we needed it. Why is it different now?" I told him the truth, because I know the difference between need and want, and I won't be manipulated. He hung up on me. I spent the rest of the day pacing the house, replaying the conversation in my head. Linda tried to reassure me, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "He'll come around," she said. "He just needs time." But I wasn't so sure. 2 days later, Mark and Jessica invited us to a family barbecue at their new house. I almost didn't go, but Linda insisted. "We can't let money tear us apart," she said. So we went, trying to pretend everything was normal. Jessica greeted us at the door with her usual sugary smile. "I made my special lemonade, just for you, Dad," she said, pressing a cold glass into my hand. I took a sip, trying to ignore the tension in the air. But as the afternoon wore on, I started to feel strange, dizzy, lightheaded. My vision blurred and my heart pounded in my chest. I stumbled to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and tried to steady myself. That's when I overheard Jessica in the hallway whispering to Mark. "Did he drink it? Are you sure he finished the whole glass?" Mark replied, "Relax, he'll be out of the way soon, then we can get what we want." My blood ran cold. I realized in that moment that this wasn't just about money. This was about betrayal, about my own son and his wife plotting against me right under my nose. I stumbled out of the bathroom, my mind spinning, my legs barely holding me up. The world felt tilted, the voices in the hallway echoing in my ears. I tried to act normal, but every glance from Jessica felt like a threat, every smile from Mark like a mask hiding something rotten underneath. I set the half-empty glass of lemonade on the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. Linda noticed right away. "Are you all right?" she whispered, concern etched across her face. I forced a smile, just a little tired. Maybe the heat's getting to me. But inside I was panicking. What had they put in that drink? Was I imagining things, or was this really happening? I watched as Jessica poured herself a glass from the same pitcher, but I noticed she barely took a sip. Mark hovered nearby, his eyes darting between me and the kitchen clock. I realized they were waiting for something, waiting for me to collapse, to give in, to sign something away. I excused myself and slipped out to the backyard, pretending to take a phone call. I dialed my doctor, describing my symptoms in a low voice. He told me to get to the ER immediately. Don't wait. If you think you've been drugged, you need to be checked out. My heart pounded as I told Linda we had to leave. She didn't ask questions, she just grabbed her purse and followed me to the car. At the hospital, the doctors ran tests and confirmed my worst fear. There were traces of a sedative in my system. You're lucky you didn't drink more, the ER doctor said. This could have been much worse. I sat in stunned silence, the reality settling over me like a heavy blanket. My own son and his wife had tried to drug me for money. Linda was furious. We have to call the police, she said. But I hesitated. I needed proof. I needed to know just how far they were willing to go. I asked the hospital to keep the results confidential for now, and we went home, slow, booking every door and window behind us. The next morning I checked my bank accounts. Nothing had changed, yet. But I found a voicemail from Mark. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Dad, I hope you're feeling better. Jessica and I were worried about you. Let us know if you need anything. The hypocrisy made my skin crawl. I decided to play along. I called Mark back, pretending I didn't suspect a thing. Thanks for checking in, son. I think I just got a little overheated. Maybe we can get together again soon. He sounded relieved, but I could hear the tension in his voice. Of course, Dad. Take care of yourself. But I wasn't about to let this go. I started digging. Through old emails, text messages, anything that might reveal their plan. What I found shocked me even more. Jessica had been researching power of attorney forms, and Mark had been looking up ways to access my retirement accounts. They weren't just after a handout, they wanted everything. I realized I was in a fight for my life and for everything I'd built, and I was determined not to lose. The next few days were a blur of paranoia and planning. I changed every password, called my lawyer, and set up alerts on all my accounts. Linda and I barely slept, taking turns watching the house at night. I kept replaying Jessica's words in my mind. He'll be out of the way soon. Then we can get what we want. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever felt. But the real shock came when I received a letter in the mail. An official-looking envelope from a local law firm. Inside was a draft of a power of attorney form, already filled out with my name, Mark's, and Jessica's. There was even a forged signature at the bottom. Mine. My hands shook as I read it. They hadn't just tried to drug me. They were trying to steal my entire life. I called my lawyer immediately. He was furious. This is criminal, and you have enough evidence to press charges, but you need to be careful. People who are desperate for money can be unpredictable. He advised me to gather as much proof as possible before going to the police. That night, I set up a small voice recorder in my living room, just in case Mark or Jessica tried to confront me again. I didn't have to wait long. The next afternoon, Mark showed up at my door all smiles and fake concern. "Dad, I just wanted to check on you. Jessica made some soup. Thought you might like it." I invited him in, keeping my guard up. He tried to steer the conversation toward my finances, asking about my will, my retirement, even the deed to the house. I played dumb, giving vague answers, all the while making sure the recorder was picking up every word. Finally, he got frustrated. "Dad, you know you can trust me. Why don't you just let me help you with your accounts? It would make things so much easier for everyone." I looked him in the eye and said, "Mark, I appreciate your concern, but I'm not ready to make any changes. Maybe someday, but not now." He forced a smile, but I could see the anger simmering beneath the surface. After he left, I checked the recording. Every word was there, proof of his intentions, proof that he was trying to manipulate me. I sent a copy to my lawyer, who told me to sit tight. "We're building a case," he said, "but don't let them know you're onto them." Meanwhile, Jessica started sending me texts, sweet at first, then increasingly desperate. "We really need your help, Dad. Mark is so stressed. Please just think about it." When I didn't respond, the messages turned nasty. "You're selfish. You don't care about your own family. You'll regret this." I saved every message, every email, every voicemail. I was determined to protect myself and Linda from whatever they had planned next. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened at the next family gathering. Jessica brought another pitcher of her special lemonade, and this time she insisted everyone try it, including Linda. As I watched her pour the drinks, I realized just how far she was willing to go. The family gathering was supposed to be a celebration. My granddaughter's birthday, balloons tied to the porch, laughter echoing through the backyard, but all I could see was Jessica, moving through the crowd with that same pitcher of lemonade, her eyes scanning the room for me and Linda. I watched as she poured glass after glass, her smile never faltering, her voice sweet as honey. "Try some, Dad. It's my special recipe. You'll love it." I felt a chill run down my spine. I made sure to keep my glass untouched, and I quietly warned Linda to do the same. She squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes wide with fear. I watched as Jessica grew more insistent, pushing the lemonade on everyone. My daughter, my son-in-law, even the kids. I realized then that this wasn't just about me. She was willing to risk anyone to get what she wanted. Halfway through the party, my granddaughter started to feel sick. She complained of dizziness, her face pale and clammy. My daughter rushed her to the bathroom, panic rising in her voice. I saw Jessica's face go white, her hands trembling as she clutched the pitcher. Mark tried to calm her, but I could see the fear in his eyes too. I pulled Linda aside and told her to call 911. "Tell them we suspect poisoning," I whispered. She nodded and slipped away, her phone already in her hand. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, their sirens cutting through the afternoon air. They took my granddaughter to the hospital, and the police began questioning everyone at the party. Jessica Bass had tried to play innocent, but the officers weren't fooled. They took the picture as evidence, sealing it in a plastic bag. Mark protested, but the police shut him down. "We'll need statements from everyone," the lead officer said, "and we'll be running toxicology tests on the lemonade." The party ended in chaos, guests leaving in a flurry of confusion and fear. I stayed behind, giving my statement to the police, my hands shaking as I recounted everything I'd seen and heard. Linda held me close, her voice steady as she told the officers about the hospital visit, the sedative in my system, and the threats we'd received from Mark and Jessica. That night, I sat in the living room, staring at the empty pitcher on the kitchen counter. I realized just how close we'd come to disaster. My own son and his wife had tried to poison me, and now they'd nearly hurt my granddaughter too. The next morning, the hospital called. My granddaughter was stable, the doctors had flushed her system, and she would recover. But the toxicology report confirmed our worst fears. The lemonade had been laced with a powerful sedative, the same one found in my blood just days before. The police arrested Jessica that afternoon. Mark tried to run, but they caught him before he could leave town. The evidence was overwhelming. Emails, texts, the forged power of attorney, and now the toxicology reports. The case was airtight. As I watched the police car drive away, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. My own son in handcuffs, my family shattered. But I knew I'd done the right thing. I'd protected Linda, my granddaughter, and myself from a betrayal I never could have imagined. The days after the arrests felt surreal. News of what happened spread quickly through our small town. Neighbors who once waved from their porches now looked at me with a mix of sympathy and disbelief. I fielded calls from relatives, friends, even old business partners. Everyone wanted to know how I was holding up, and if the rumors were true. I told them only what they needed to hear, the truth, as painful as it was. Linda and I spent hours with detectives, lawyers, and social workers. The evidence was overwhelming. Jessica confessed first, breaking down in the interrogation room. She admitted to drugging the lemonade, forging my signature, and plotting with Mark to take my money. We were desperate, she sobbed. We thought if we could just get the money, everything would be okay. Mark, on the other hand, tried to blame Jessica for everything, but the digital trail told a different story. The texts, emails, and voice recordings painted a clear picture of their plan. The trial was swift. The judge didn't mince words. This was a calculated, heartless betrayal of family trust, he said. Jessica and Mark were both sentenced to prison. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read, except for the quiet sobs of my daughter Emily, who had lost her brother to greed and lies. After the sentencing, I sat with Linda in our quiet kitchen, the weight of everything finally settling in. "Did we do the right thing?" she asked, her voice trembling. I took her hand. We protected our family. We protected ourselves. That's all we could do. But the pain lingered. I mourned the son I thought I knew, the family I thought I had. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. I spent more time with Emily and my granddaughter, grateful for their love and resilience. We started new traditions, Sunday dinners, movie nights, long walks in the park. I poured my energy into my business, mentoring young people who reminded me of the man I used to be. I found comfort in small things, the laughter of my granddaughter, the warmth of Linda's hand, the quiet strength that comes from surviving the Unema. Ginable. One afternoon, Emily sat beside me on the porch. "Dad, I'm proud of you," she said. "You stood up for what was right, even when it hurt." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. "We all did, sweetheart. We all did." If you're listening to this and you've ever felt betrayed by family, know this: you are not alone. Sometimes the hardest thing you'll ever do is protect yourself from the people you love most. But you are stronger than you think, and you deserve to be safe, respected, and loved. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. If my story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share your own experience in the comments. Let's build a community where no one has to face heartbreak alone and where every act of self-respect is celebrated. To hear more stories of justice, boundaries, and second chances, click on the next video. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself enough to never settle for less than you deserve. Sometimes I sit on my porch in the quiet of the evening, watching the sun dip below the trees, and I think about everything that's happened. There was a time when I believed family was unbreakable, that love and loyalty would always win out. But I've learned that even the strongest bonds can be tested, and sometimes they break. I've discovered that self-respect isn't selfish. It's the foundation of every healthy relationship. Setting boundaries, saying no, and standing up for yourself, even when it means standing alone, are acts of courage, not cruelty. I learned that the people who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your dignity or your safety for their gain. Forgiveness, I've realized, is not about forgetting the pain or excusing the betrayal. It's about letting go of the anger so you can move forward. It's about choosing peace over bitterness and hope over regret. I forgave Mark and Jessica, not for their sake, but for mine. I refuse to let their choices define the rest of my life. If you're listening to this and you're struggling with betrayal, heartbreak, or the pain of family conflict, know this: you are not alone. Your story isn't over. Every ending is a new beginning, every loss a lesson in strength. You are braver than you think, and you deserve a life filled with respect, kindness, and real love. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. If my story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share your own experience in the comments. Let's build a community where no one has to face heartbreak alone and where every act of self-respect is celebrated. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself enough to never settle for less than you deserve.